Crisis management. What is crisis management? What is a business crisis? A business crisis is an event which has the capability of threatening the business continuity and going concern. It can happen due to some internal or external reasons, and it can strike any time, anywhere, any business. But knowing that there is a business crisis and it can strike your business anytime, anywhere, are you ready for that? Are you prepared to deal with such a crisis? Are you applying some effective crisis management policy, or this is the first time to hear the term crisis management? Let me tell you that there are three main stages or steps for crisis management: pre-crisis, within crisis or crisis management and response, post-crisis. The first stage of pre-crisis, this is before you have any crisis already. You have to have a very effective and competent risk or crisis management team. They will need to come up with some plans to deal with those crises if they strike your company. Before you have any crisis, they will need to be working together. They will need to find some plans to deal with those crises if they strike you. Also, within that stage, before you have any strike, it is very good and important for the crisis management team to draft some communication messages. What messages? Those communication messages that are communicated to your stakeholders within crisis times. Before you have any crisis, they have to draft those communication messages and know already who you will send it to when you have any crisis. But you might ask me, you haven't yet had any crisis. Why would I draft those communication messages? Because that will save you a lot of time in case you have any crisis. You will not waste time to draft those communication messages and to figure out who I will send it to if you have any crisis, because within the crisis you will need to save your time and you will need to act proactively. That will lead us to the second stage of risk management and response. This is a way of responding to your crisis already, how you deal with the crisis itself. You will need to apply those plans that you have been thinking of within the previous stage. Those plans will come to action now. You will need to apply them to fight that crisis, to deal with that crisis. And you will also need to send those communication messages to your stakeholders to assure them, to communicate with them, those messages that you have drafted in the previous stage as well. So you will save time. So you will come to apply your plans of risk or of crisis management that you put in the previous stage, and you will start communicating with your stakeholders and societies and officials. The last stage is post-crisis, after the crisis passed already. Someone might ask, you said after the crisis is done. So what else? No, that stage is very, very important, because in that stage you will need to continue send some messages to assure your stakeholders, and you will also need to assess those plans that you applied. Were they too much effective dealing with that crisis, or they were not that much effective? So you will need to assess your response in that post-crisis stage. You will need to assess your plans, how effective they were. And you will also need to continue sending some messages to assure your stakeholders. That stage also can be used to document the whole process. You will need to use it and trace it for training purposes. You will use it for training your staff and quality control. So that stage is also important, even if it comes after the crisis is over.